Welcome, everybody, to the Out of Home Insider Show, a podcast like no other, hosted by the one and only Tim Rowe. Get ready to have some knowledge dropped on you and to be entertained, because nothing's more valuable than food for your brain. So sit back, relax, we're about to dive in as the best industry podcast is about to begin.
I just kept finding is that the best conversations would just start happening, and you're like, damn it, I wish I had pressed record. So
definitely.
So Brian, you've been a busy guy. It's almost been a year. March was the last time that we sat down just one-on-one. Of course, we had that cool conversation with Dougie along the way at Rapify. Well, you've been busy. What have you been up to?
It's been a weird year. I wanted to say fun, but it was fun. I got married, so that would be
absolutely congratulations. And a new birth, a new niece.
I have a new niece, I have a new nephew, and I got married. It was definitely a fun year to a degree. I mean, look, we all know what it was. It was a strange year. It still is. Especially when it's your first full year in business. It's like, okay, you're like poised to really start to come out of the gate and do some amazing things. And we were building up a client roster, and we were set for a really crazy Q2. And, we halted the brakes because a lot of brands that were going to spend with us, obviously tabled their out-of-home plans, but we pivoted, and that word is so overused. But come late April and May, we just started working more of the opportunistic deal route, really educating brands on how out-of-home could be viable and strategic. When cities were locked down, and then once the cities reopened, it was kind of business as usual. And I think a lot of my fellow competitors would agree right now. Right now it's starting to get really fun again. Yes, we're not fully out of the woods in terms of the pandemic, but brands are spending, and it's set up to be hopefully a really nice rebound year. We've grown our client roster immensely. Got some old friends back when the pesky non-compete ran up, so that was nice. And
sure,
we just, through word of mouth and through a little bit of cold outreach, we're just looking to build up a really nice, strong roster, and hopefully we'll continue doing so.
Definitely. It's a great roster, right? It's lots of cool brands that look good on out of home and make out of home look good. And that's fun. Speaking of fun, we were texting a little bit back and forth last night, and with the Super Bowl coming up here, you sent me this, and I had a freak out moment, because I was like, no way.
You're new to it. So a lot of people who are watching that are going to roll their eyes and go, oh, here we go again. And here we go. And I'm sure my brother will text me and be like, are you serious? Yeah, but
right. So I remember, I remember watching this on TV. Like, I remember thinking like that was the coolest commercial ever. If you're listening to this on audio, check the show notes below. It's an iconic Bud Light commercial. But how did it become that your brother is the man, the myth, the legend?
Yeah, I've gotten this down to a Cliff Notes version, because I can literally spend an hour, and it's a really fun story if you've never known it, and I'm always down to tell it. I love chatting about it. But I'll keep it short and sweet, because it is 7 years already, which is wild.
That's crazy.
I used to be a serial focus grouper. I've done over 200 focus groups. I needed to make extra cash when I was a little bit younger. I still do, but I would do all these focus groups, and both my younger brothers would see me making $100 here, $150, $200 there, and they wanted in. So when a woman who had, recruited me for focus groups in the past reached out to me in December of 2013. She said, I'm looking for guys 25 to 30 that love beer, love sports, that are outgoing. We'll pay them $100 to interview them. Do you have any friends? We'd love to have you in. And I said, okay. And I passed, the screener along to both my brothers. It was a pretty lengthy, open-ended screener, different questions here and there. Who's your favorite athlete? Who's your favorite celebrity? Blah, blah, blah. And, my brothers were all for it, except Ian, who's in this commercial, straight out said, I don't want to do this. This is annoying. It was
really
like questions. And I have the email, so I'm not paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And I said, Ian, well, don't complain when I make this money. And then you're like, why aren't I getting focus groups? The one caveat should be that, the focus group recruiter said, out of all of the people that are participating, we're going to pick a few to participate in this mega focus group for 6 hours. They'll get $1,000. So I just knew off the bat, I'm like, I'm going to definitely get picked for that group. I'm always outgoing in these things. I'll be fine. Sure enough, I go, I interview, I do the, the focus group one-on-one interview, get $100. My brothers both do it. They get $100. A few of my friends do it. They get $100. I get called back. Both my brothers get called back. They have a few extra questions. They wanted to give us another $100. So at this point, I'm like, this is amazing. I've made $200 for nothing. I mean, the focus group is a one-on-one interview, questions about pop culture, what you like to do in your free time. It was a lot of fun. And Ian calls me up, a few weeks after these 2 rounds of focus groups and goes, guess what? I got picked for that super focus group. They're going to pay me $1,000 to show up.
And at this point, we still don't know what super focus group actually meant.
No. I just thought he was going to be sitting in a room for 6 hours, which is pretty long, and he'd get $1,000, which to me at that time, and still is, was equivalent to $25,000.
Sure.
I was immediately furious. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I passed this along, but me and my brothers are both pretty close. I was happy for him. Ian's, at the time, still is 3 years younger than me, and that was good money for him. So I said, you know what, have a great time. Let me know how it goes. Whatever. Congrats. Sure enough, he goes to do this focus group on a Thursday night in January of 2014 and calls me the next morning, Friday. He went on a Thursday, said, let's grab lunch, which isn't weird. He said, I want to tell you about this focus group was the weirdest thing. So
kudos to him for keeping this in the bag, because I'd have been bugging out.
Yeah. Sure enough, we grab lunch and no big deal. It's, we work same industry and I was at Zenith Media at the time, and he basically told me that he went to meet the 2 women running the focus group at a bar that you saw in the beginning of that commercial. And they said, it's going to be a great night. We're getting things set up. Just hang out here, have a drink. We'll be right back. We'll get things going. And when the 2 women running the focus group left Ian, they started filming that commercial.
Wow.
That bar was not a real bar. It was a complete setup. They built it from scratch out of an empty storefront. Everyone in there was an extra.
Stop.
And Ian went through that entire night not knowing he was being filmed. He just thought that, this was weird and crazy and like something's going on, but this has to do with the focus group and I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to go with it because like, why not? And we're very similar. So I would have, putting myself in his shoes, I would have done the same thing.
Sure.
And I think for him, it was like, getting into a limousine full of bachelorettes, at first it's like, okay, this is just crazy. I don't know where I'm going. And Reggie Watts, who's pseudo famous, like he's famous, but like Ian didn't really know who he was at the time. Like that was like, okay, that's interesting. But once you see Minka Kelly and then once you see Don Cheadle.
Like Don Cheadle walks into the elevator with a llama. This isn't normal.
We could be on, for an hour discussing this, but the bottom line is it was an absolutely incredible thing for my brother and for my family, in general. This was not a cameo appearance. Bud Light had spot 1A in the Super Bowl, which is You Are the First commercial out of the first time out. This was their full rebrand, up for whatever. They had completely rebranded the beer. My brother was the face of the rebrand. The Super Bowl was in New York that year. Bud Light took over a massive cruise ship that was parked in the harbor by the U.S. Intrepid. Our whole family was invited to stay on the cruise ship for the weekend. It was only Bud Light, like major sponsors, celebrities. The cruise ship acted, it was docked, but everything was 100% free. We did everything from see Imagine Dragons in concert to Foo Fighters to Zac Brown. Met everybody from Justin Verlander to Kate Upton to Rob Riggle. And it was, I would say, a really insane 10 months for Ian, who, coming out of the Super Bowl had interviews all over the place with Ryan Seacrest, ABC. And then the commercial kind of tapered off for a month. And once March Madness started, every 5 seconds, it was a shortened version. I'd be in the gym on the treadmill, commercial. And I just laughed. And end of the day, there's a lot more to the story, and it's so much fun to tell for people who don't know. I think right now, a lot of people are like, okay, we've known this story, but
it's a first for me. So that was super cool.
Not have happened. Look, was there a little jealousy? Sure. At first, I'm a very outgoing person. I love being the center of attention. It couldn't have happened to a better person. I mean, Ian made sure that, myself and Brandon, our other brother, was included in everything. I mean,
awesome.
We were involved that whole weekend for Super Bowl, every event, everything fun. He was calling me to let me know what was going on left and right. And then to cap it off, later that year in September, Bud Light literally bought a small town in Colorado for $500,000. They branded it. They branded it Whatever USA. Great experiential marketing case. So and that was Ian's kind of like last hurrah. Like they wanted him out there to kind of meet and greet and hang out. And what does Ian do? Make sure that me, his now wife, and our other brother was invited to come for the weekend. And like that's just, when people say, how do you like working with your siblings? And, especially now really working with your siblings and having siblings in the same industry, it's like, we're so close and we get to do so many fun things together. It's awesome. So it's a great story. Every Super Bowl, the farther we move away from it, it's always going to be like, it's farther and farther in the past, but a lot of pictures, a lot of incredible memories. That commercial will always be wild. I bumped into, last thing I bumped into Ryan Tedder, who's the lead singer of One Republic at iHeartRadio's music festival about a year ago. And, I went over to him and I said, Ryan, I just wanted to say hello. And at first he was like, oh, here's another fan. And I said, my younger brother is Ian from the Up for Whatever commercial. And he flipped out. He knew, he said, Ian? Like, up for whatever on stage with me, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, this is crazy. He said we have to take a picture.
That's awesome.
It's kind of funny. So small world. It's a wild story. Super Bowl week, always something that I remember. But
that is a wild story. And congratulations, your brother Brandon coming, join the team at Quan. That's exciting. Obviously good signs that Quan's doing all of the right things. And, amongst all of the amazing brands you've introduced to out of home and have introduced out of home too, you did some really important work over last year. And I know it's a real core tenet of what you do at Quan. Talk to me. I've got 3 campaigns that really stood out to me around the vaccine, around social justice, and most recently Barstool. But what is that core guiding principle that gets you involved with some of these projects and at really big scale?
I think everyone on the buying side knows, but you're always going to be asked to do something on the pro bono side of things, if not multiple times throughout a year. And like, you kind of like, you get the chills because you're like, here we go. I got to go out and ask for all of this free space. And especially when you're at a larger shop, it's kind of like, you really have to do it. And I think part of owning your own business is really being able to align with, pro bono campaigns that resonate with you personally, that you really, I'm not going to go ahead and we don't have the buying power that, some of the holding companies have. So I can't call in all my favors multiple times a year and ask for free space, when our spend is X. But there were 3 this year specifically in the past 11 months that really were amazing. And one was partnering, well, we could look at this one since it's on the screen. This is the most recent one. And I know that my friends at Out of Home Today weren't a fan, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And, it's all fine and good, but this was with the agency Mischief at No Fixed Address. It's a long name.
It's a long name.
Yeah, call it Mischief, but they originated originally from Canada, opened up the US shop this year in New York, and they are killing it. They have some of the brightest creative minds led by Greg Hahn, who's industry known over there. And they are just incredible. And the second that they launched in New York, and I kind of read up on them, I knew I wanted to align with them, be a partner, for any out-of-home needs. So we had already worked with them on that election day Aura campaign, which was super fun. But they had come to us at the end of December and said, look, we were asked by Pfizer to put out this pro-vaccination campaign. And anyone who talks to me knows that I'm the optimist. I think that we're going to get through this. It's just about being safe, about being smart, and better days are ahead. And this, after seeing the creative and how kind of sentimental it was, grandparents getting to meet their grandchildren for the first time, people celebrating graduations in person, I was like, this is amazing. And while, yes, the font is small, and yes, it may be difficult to read here and there, the majority of our placements happen to be in very pedestrian-friendly areas. So people are going to be walking, they're going to have time to stop and dwell and actually read the message. And regardless, the photo is going to grab you and the message is going to grab you. And for me, people need to get vaccinated because those are the same people that, want life to go back to normal. So this was a no-brainer to align with when Mischief asked for help.
Yeah, listen, I think it's killer. And so much of, like, especially the way that you frame this on social, like, I'm sure that picture got a ton of play on. It probably got more impressions on Instagram than it got wherever it was.
It's, they started to release TV spots a few weeks ago, and Out of Home wasn't ready to go. And it got, the creative itself got incredible reviews from the trades for the most part. Just, the message itself has really hit home. And I'm just really thankful to the partners that we have on the media side that were without hesitation willing to donate. It was pretty much everyone. Anyone that I had asked for, be it Orange Barrel, be it Logan Communications, be it my friend, Alan down in Florida, with his mobile trucks, like who volunteered out after seeing this, throw it on there. Like, it's awesome. And we should be spreading the word, and people should be getting vaccinated. So it's one thing if it's like, look, a blank screen that says get vaccinated, be safe. And like, would I have still reached out for space? Sure. I thought the creative was incredible. I still think the creative is incredible. And I just kind of admire the way that Mischief, approaches each project and approaches each campaign, whether it's pro bono or not. So this was
right. And it's a proper integrated campaign. Like, if you see the TV spot, it's probably got the same look and feel, right? And then you see that, like, it's meant to be consumed at multiple levels. So I'm with you. I think it looks good. It looks clean.
Thank you.
This is one that stood out to me, and it was an especially tense time, and the execution on this was just awesome. Talk to me about this. This is obviously a social justice focused campaign, but how did this come to be?
So I don't want to come off as sounding cliche because I feel like this was a really sensitive time, and June was a really difficult month for our country.
Yeah.
And when the Black Lives Matter movement really was brought to the forefront for our country, I wanted to donate, and I personally look, I can't. D&I is always going to be very important to me. But the bottom line is we're a company. We're not a massive company yet. We don't have I don't have a ton of people. I could build the company on really firm D&I. Inclusion and all of that, which I will continue to do so. But in trying to find out what I could do that was a little bit more other than donate space, Zambezi is a fantastic agency that we work with. They're based out in LA. They're female led, which is incredible. And their Black employees came up with this campaign in-house.
That's awesome.
Called the Open Waters Movement. And they showed us, the messaging that they wanted to get out there, and quite simply said, look, can you find some out-of-home space that would take this messaging? And it was blunt, it was to the point, and it was pretty impactful. Again, just completely different initiatives, but mischief and the vaccine, this hit me, and I was like, this is pretty amazing, and I immediately wanted to do something about it. So I was fortunate enough to be able to reach out to a bunch of media partners. And in fairness, I really do try to split up the favors. There are so many players in the media space that you could ask someone for help with one pro bono initiative, and then you could ask someone else for another. But this was something that I felt like I wanted to do more. This helped me feel like I was doing more outside of the general donation to specific funds, and obviously the social media posts, clarifying your view and the way that you feel. And this is one of the campaigns that I personally am most proud of since starting Quan, in general. And I will always, it'll be up on our site forever. It'll be something that I will always be proud of. It's something that I personally believe is super important to continue to spread the word, and diversity and inclusion should be the backbone of every agency, and the advertising industry needs to continue to prioritize that in both hiring and in building their internal teams. But
yeah,
this is great.
It was bold, the creative was bold, and it's easy to look at maybe how things have changed, or things have tempered off maybe in some parts of the country or what have you. But 22 weeks ago, right, when this campaign was live in the market, things were still hot.
Yeah.
It was bold. It was a risk.
It was, it was a risk, but I liked it because it said what you would do. Things, just one thing.
Yeah.
And there weren't photos. It was just text. It was very straight to the point. And I liked who, it wasn't me writing it. It really came from a sister agency that, the employees were writing it and doing the creative themselves. And I thought that resonated even more. So I was really happy to get behind this. It was something that I personally believed in, and I love Zambezi. They've been a great partner to us. We'll continue to. We're doing some really fun stuff with them this year that I'm excited to share soon. And yeah, I mean, that campaign, I will say, is a top 3 for me since starting Quan.
It's funny, and this isn't to take the conversation this direction, but just to reflect on it. Over the last couple of weeks, if you have a TV or a telephone, you've probably heard of GameStop. You might have forgot that they were a business, right? But that's a red hot conversation. I was talking with some of the Redditors who are taking out blip billboards, and they're 22-year-old college students who never in their life would have ever thought about doing a billboard, but they're doing it. And it's interesting to hear their take on it, because the way they look at it is hey, this is kind of the last bastion of free speech is out of home. And I think that's a superpower we can really play on is that
out of home works. I mean, Alexis Ohanian tweeted 4 of those Redditor billboards yesterday on his Twitter. And I mean, it's just, it's obviously a different way to utilize out of home than our day-to-day use of it for the clients that we work with, but
sure,
it's pretty great. So yeah, I've seen that.
Definitely. And the last one, this is one that I know a lot of folks are familiar with, just in general, but you got involved with Barstool personally first, right? Before this campaign, or was it were you how'd you get involved with the Barstool Fund?
So this is a weird story, right? So the Barstool Fund was also something, it was something that resonated. Look, I worked at a restaurant in Jericho, Long Island that is still open, that is a small business for over 10 years.
Yeah.
Both my brothers worked at a competing Italian restaurant on Long Island that was open for 5 years, that they were at for over 5 years, and that actually just got funded by the Barstool Fund. So that's kind of amazing.
How about that?
So, I'm someone that admires somebody that builds something from scratch. It doesn't get it handed to them, that builds up something successful. There'll always be a tinge of jealousy when you're a multi-millionaire, but like you can't help but say, wow. And that's what Dave Portnoy has done with Barstool. I just think it's
Incredible.
insane. And when he started this fund, the fact that one day, Marcus Lemonis challenged him to donate and build this up, and he did, and now it's at $40 billion, and he's helped over 200 small businesses. It's like, what can I do? And like, I can go and donate $20 and, I'd still feel good about myself, but I wanted to kind of do something, right? So at first I was like, I'm going to take a deep breath, and I donated $1,000, and that's a lot of money.
It was big. Yeah.
It's a lot of money. And odds are, they wouldn't know personally that I donated it, but it felt good to do that. And then I kind of thought, being somewhat of someone that hustles a lot, I was like, well, Erika Nardini, who's the CEO of Barstool and who spent a lot of time in the ad world and has this great podcast, Token CEO, I'm like, it would be kind of interesting if now that I've donated, if I am able to hop onto her podcast and kind of share the story of Quan, which is in fact a small business. And that exposure would essentially help Quan, because Barstool works with so many amazing brands. So it wasn't like I was like I had an ulterior motive, let me donate and let me get on the show. If I didn't get on the show, I still love Barstool. But I shot Erika, posted on LinkedIn, and then I shot Erika an email. I had her email. We had actually emailed back and forth a few times just about a number of things, and said, look, here's my story in short. I think it would be interesting. I know that maybe it won't be. I'm self-aware, so maybe you don't find this interesting. If you have a 10-minute block on Token CEO, I'd love to come on and tell Quan's story and how we've kind of navigated through a time when people were told to stay in home and we're peddling out of home media. And sure enough, our producer reaches out to me about 2 days later and is like, here's a link. Does 11 a.m. on a Thursday work? Erika wants to talk to you. And I'm like, that's nuts. So I basically wait for that Thursday, click on the link, and I'm waiting for a Zoom to start, just like I do 5 times a day. And sure enough, Erika Nardini's face pops up, and it's not like 80 people and it's like a production studio. It's just Erika at her desk. And I'm like, this is I'm not starstruck, but it's like, this is kind of cool.
Tripping a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, we sit down. She's an incredible person and has an amazing story. And we sat down for 20 minutes, and she's like, tell me the story of Quan. I shared the story of how it was conceptualized, of how we've kind of navigated through the pandemic. And then she turned the tables and asked me to ask her some questions, which I was not prepared for, but
no pressure.
Caught it on the fly and was like, asked about Barstool's plans for 2021, how they've navigated the lack of in-person events, which they rely on so heavily. And then I asked why they don't do more paid media, especially on the out-of-home side, when they have so many different pieces of content, especially.
Let's just stop and applaud. Brian had the shot. Take your shot. If you've got your shot, take your shot.
I said, between all the podcasts you guys have, like, you could be strategic and smart with where you advertise them, grab the viewers that you don't have. But she bounced back with kind of like, we do out of home with Penn National Gaming in Philly. And I'm like, yes, obviously there's that partnership, but like, I wasn't going to push back. Anyway, I don't think anything really came of it. I don't think I ended up on Token CEO. That wasn't the point. She took 20 minutes out of her day, which is insane, to chat with me. And that was amazing. So I said, you know what else can I do? And I reached out to her producer and said, would you mind if I happen to get some free out-of-home space if I throw the Barstool Fund up there and just simply, throw this message up? And look, Barstool knows nothing about really out-of-home. It's not an insult. Like, I can't send them specs and they're not going to turn around and design creative.
Sure.
I literally had to do everything. So, the producer thought it was amazing. The Barstool talent that runs the fund, her name's Liz Gonzalez, she's really well known, reached out and was like, this would be amazing. And they sent me the logo, and I basically came up with, it wasn't really coming up with it. It was like, here's how many businesses, here's the money. I sent it to a friend on the production side to build it to spec for digital billboards. And what happens, I reached out to a few people I hadn't yet called in favors to, or have, and that are friends and know would like this. And look, for me, it was two-part. It was like, it's an incredible cause that has gotten lost, I think, among everything else, vaccinations, so on and so forth. Small businesses are closing. I'm in New York City. My favorite bars are closing every other day.
Yeah.
And the exposure, Barstool Sports, like they go viral. Someone tweets something there, like 1 million people are going to see it. So if you're donating media space, like, odds are it's going to be good for your company. I mean, the picture of the WOW billboard that you just showed, it was retweeted by both Erika, Dave, and Liz. And somebody commented, that's fake. That looks like a TV. And
oh, really?
It's funny because WOW just came out with this great article. I think it was a media post about how their quality of their screens are absolutely incredible.
It looks incredible.
And they are. Like, they are one of my favorite assets to buy in the Los Angeles market. I mean, you kind of get mass reach, and they're just all incredible reads like that. And it was just awesome. It kind of went viral in that we got a lot of great media partners that volunteered to run the message.
Yeah.
Then I had people LinkedIning me who had found out about me from Twitter, who I didn't even know was in the ad industry. Some people who had, boards down in suburban Atlanta and wanted to run it on their independent screens.
Let's go.
Files. It went kind of viral. But most of all, it was just great. It was great getting out a good message like that.
Yeah.
There is no ulterior motive here. I'm not working with Barstool. They're not my client. They're not, I'm not going around saying, I have Barstool as a client. They're not on my website. Like, this was not,
You saw an opportunity to help and you helped.
Exactly. That's it. And it's over now. Like, I'm sure if you go around to different markets, it's still running. But this was fun. It was a cool little case study on on persistence and doing, something for a good cause. And I've been, a stoolie for a long time. They're good people. I tweet back and forth with a lot of their talent over there, and why not? It didn't really, take away from what I do for our clients daily. And I just thought it was a great cause. And I really do think that, look, we put so much effort into doing things for paid media day in and day out. That's what, the buying agencies do in shops. And it's kind of nice now that we can say that we've now helped 3 completely different, separate, really important causes. I think we've now been able to bring to all 3 of these partners, combined somewhere close to $4 million in free out-of-home space, which is pretty amazing. And look, the media partners never get enough love. I can't name everyone now. I tried to do it on LinkedIn, but we got to stop using the word vendor, start using the word media partner. They are partners. They just come through. There's always going to be the arguing with negotiating and holds that are lost and something posting late, but this ain't world peace. You got to remember who really helps. And I don't know. I don't think I've ever cursed at a media partner in my 13 plus years. I never will, because it's one team, one dream. So I'm just super appreciative for the people that across all 3 of these initiatives were able to help us out.
I don't know that there's a better place to end on that. Brian, where can folks learn more about all the great stuff that you're doing at Quan?
Yeah, quanmediagroup.com. We recently did a little website redesign at the end of last year, so it's exciting. We have some case studies, a little bit more about us. But that's it. I'm excited. I think the whole industry should get amped. I think we're going to have a really good rest of this year. There's a lot of business for everyone, and I think there's a lot of good things coming. And I think we just got to hang on for a few more weeks, and the tide's going to turn, and we're going to have a really nice spring into the remainder of the year. So
couldn't agree more. It's only up from here. If you found this to be helpful or interesting or engaging, any of that, please share it with somebody else who could benefit. As always, make sure to smash that subscribe button down there in the corner, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks so much, Tim.